Hi, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and welcome to our Bloom and Grow Surge Along. This is lesson 10. There's not too many more after this one, right? This one is really fun. So we're going to take our applique pieces that we embellished and we're going to put them on the quilt as we quilt it this month. It's a super fun technique, and we get to do a little bit of ruler working, we get to do some meandering, and all. So we're going to use like all the tools in the toolbox this time, which is something that you know I love to do. So let's get over to our interactive presentation deck and get to it. So here is our interactive presentation deck that you get if you are signed up for our Surge Along. And we no longer have the kits available, but the pattern is still available through us. The rest of the lessons, of course, are going to live on the Bernina Skill Hub. And the Bernina Skill Hub is Bernina's direct to the customer learning platform. The lessons for Bloom and Grow are sectioned off, and Mary Beck guides you through those. And we do ours a little bit differently because we're doing ours as a quilt as you go method. So we'll put something together, then we quilt it, and then we put something else together, and then we quilt it going down the line for each lesson. Our schedule started in May 3rd of last year, so our last lesson will be April 4th of this year. So this month, we're going to be quilting our flower and vines and leaves that we made last month, but we've also got some things that we reserved from other months. Like I said, for this lesson, we're going to be attaching section 2, and we're going to be quilting on a sit-down long arm with using all 3 adjustable quilting feet. So section 2 is over here to the right of the section 1 piece that we completed. And this is going to consist of a 4-patch that we reserved from our first lesson, which was the strip piecing block. Then we need our flower background, which we had appliqued the vine to last month, and then the little black strip that is the top of the flower pot. I'm going to be quilting mine with 50 weight Ceracore thread. This is the gray thread that comes with your L890, L860, L850 machines. And my featured quilting machine that I'm using is a Bernina Q16 Plus sit-down model. And I am using the number 73, number 72, and number 74 adjustable feet. And each one of those serves a different purpose. Also, just a little reminder that the adjustable quilting feet are on sale this month through February 28th for 25% off. I'm also going to use a 475 Bernina with a walking foot attached to it for some of my piecing. You're going to need to grab some of your backing fabric. You have extras left over from when we cut our backing fabric in lesson 1. And you're going to need 21.5 inch by 63-inch rectangle of your backing fabric and 21.5 inch by about 59 inches of a rectangle of batting. We're going to need some additional supplies. You can never go wrong with magic pins, a rotary cutter, cutting mat. I like to use my Reggie's quilting gloves to get a better grip on my work. And in addition to those feet I mentioned, you're going to need the every angle ruler for our ruler work quilting. So let's talk about our reserve pieces. So here is that string piece block. It's a 4-patch. You should still have that in your collection bin for this project. And we need that pot piece top. And then, like I mentioned, our flower background and our applique pieces that we made last month. So let's go over to the drawing board and see how this is going to go together. So here is our quilted piece that you've seen us making for the past, I don't know, 7 to 9 months, something like that, right? So I have it laid out here on my table and I've measured it. And this side here is 58.5 inches. And now it's time to add our side. It looks like this. And I've done a little bit of work to it. Here,
This end here is the bottom where our plant is gonna be coming out of the flower pot here like this. And this is where we're gonna add our flower bits. Now, this is quilt as you go, as I mentioned many times before. So I wanted to add our applique pieces as I'm quilting. So right now, I have done this off camera, but this is nothing special. I've stitched together this unit that we saved over from the very first lesson. So this was a 4 patch of our string pieced item. So I've stitched that to the top of our flower block we made last month. Then we also had saved some pieces from the flower pot, and this is the darker black fabric with the little swirls in it here. So that's the top of the flower pot. So now sewing these bits together also equates 58.5 inches in length. I do want to mention that the quilting as you go process can make this shrink up a little bit. So you want to kind of stitch this together, measure, and just make sure that everything's lining up at this point. So now that I know that this is going to fit, I'm going to take this aside and just put it here for just a moment. And now I have the backing, and it does match what I have on this part of my backing. See, I'm not going to I'm not going to mix and match the fabric on the back. I'm just using this teal fabric, but this is 21.5 inches wide, and I have not cut this to length yet. And so I need to cut this 21.5 inches, and I'm going to do this one about 5 inches longer than this, just so I have some wiggle room. So I'm going to cut this. If we're at 58.5, I'm going to do like 64 inches for this piece, and I'm going to stitch it kind of centered on this piece here. So doing this, we are going to have batting in between here, of course, but the first plan is to take our side fabric backing like this. This is right side up. Now, because this is going on the back first, I'm not going to flip my quilt sandwich that's here around it all. I'm just taking this and putting it in place on my backing like this. And then we're going to pin this into place and we're going to stitch it. And I'm going to be stitching this on just my regular Bernina sewing machine with a walking foot. You could serge this on if you wanted. There's no harm in that. I just find it easier at this point to just stitch this with the sewing machine, because in this class, we use all of the tools in the sewing room.
And remember, we're going to be using this little notch right there on our walking foot as our 1/4 inch mark.
Okay, now that I've put the backing piece on the side, you can see what it looks like on this side. Now, eventually, we'll be putting some batting in here like this. It's just going to get sandwiched in here, but I want to sew the top of our quilt to this. So here's our top. Our top is going to go on up here like this. So we're going to take this over and line this up perfectly. And then I flatten this out, but we're going to be sewing, we've sewn the back to here, and now we're going to sew the top to here. And you want to be careful not to stretch it. So you're going to match this at your important intersections, like where the block lines up. There we go. And then this is an intersection that we want to line up here. So I'm just going to keep pinning this and then I'll bring it over to the sewing machine and stitch the seam again, this time including the top that you just saw me pin on.
So I'm going to sew with my backing piece on top. And the idea is that I want to sew just a needle width to the left of my original stitching. And we want to make sure that we line up all our seams nicely.
Backing is sewn on and pressed the seam so it's nice and flat. And this is the top part that's been sewn on. And now we just need to add our batting because we're going to fold our top over like this. And this is where we will add our applique pieces and everything. But we need to put a piece of batting about 21 inches by 60 inches in this area. Now in this little spot here, you may want to just take a hand sewing needle and do like a little whip stitch along here to hold the batting, unless you want to quilt the dickens out of it or whatever. And as I'm spray basting, I'm just carefully kind of doing it in sections. My table's pretty big, so, I have like short arms. This is a little bit of a challenge for me. Especially trying not for you to not see the fact that I'm still in my pajamas here as I shoot this video. And by pajamas, I mean weird cut up t-shirt and yoga pants. Take your time to a whip stitch along the seam if you want, and then you're going to spray your batting. And then we're going to carefully pull our quilt top over and smooth it into position. Now, because I'm going to do this in one sitting, I'm just going to keep it spray basted. However, you might consider doing a little stitch with your walking foot in the ditch here, and then do this area here to kind of hold it into place. Remember how we did this section with straight lines, and then we did meander here. But I'm going to do mine all on the sit down long arm. So I'm going to do my bits here with ruler working. And then we'll kind of move back and forth from free motion because I want to do my leaves and my flower free motion. I want to just kind of applique them and hold them on at the same time. So now that this is complete and everything is nice and smooth, I'm going to baste around the perimeter of the quilt to just hold everything tidy. And I'm going to do that on my regular Bernina sewing machine with a walking foot and a stitch length set to 6 millimeters long. This is a basting stitch I'm not necessarily going to remove. It's just something to temporarily hold it down. So I make the stitch length longer so that it'll stitch faster. So now that everything is kind of temporarily stitched down over here on the side, I am going to meander just like I did in this spot of the quilt here. I'm going to meander the same in this area behind the stem. I'm not going to go over the stem, but I'm going to meander, 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 and then I'll probably just do some sort of little swirly design here. And then, like I mentioned, I'm going to put my ruler work foot on and do straight line ruler working here to emulate what we've already done over here. Then after that's all together, blah, 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 it'll be time to quilt on our applique bits. So let's just do the meandering portion and all of that stuff I just mentioned. And then I'll come back and we'll place the flowers. So I'm going to wind a bobbin on my Q16 Plus of the gray Ceracore that comes with your serger. And that's what I'm going to use to quilt, because that's initially what I used to quilt the first section. You could use anything that you want. You could for sure use the new Perfect Quilting thread from OESD. That would work. You could experiment with the white thin cotton thread if you wanted. But, you know, just don't try to mix up the threads too much or it's going to look a little weird, you know. So I'm just going to stick to the gray Ceracore. I'm going to be using all of the adjustable feet, the 72, which is the ruler work foot, and you can use 72 or preferably 72S, but I have 72 at home here in my studio. I'm going to start with my adjustable number 73 micro stippling foot so I can do my meander in all of those areas we talked about. But then I'm going to switch to the ruler work foot. Then I'll be using the adjustable cup clip foot like this one when we add our leaves and our flower. So I've got my piece here. Here's the kind of the top corner, right? So I'm just gonna wiggle my way into here. And I'm gonna just start somewhere up here. We're threaded, we're ready to go. I'm stitching at 10 stitches per inch, which is the default setting. And I have my heel tap on my Q16 set to do a knot. And what that does is when I heel tap here, it puts the needle down, brings the needle up, and lifts the foot, which then allows me to pull that bobbin thread up to the top like that. All right, so let's just go for it. And I'm gonna be doing like a medium meander. And when you need to stop, stop completely, needle down, then rearrange your fabric or your work, and then get it nice and flat and start again. And the only goal here is to not cross over your stippling, which is very hard to do if you're a beginner. So you might consider drawing this out first. So if you got some skip stitches or some, we call it flagging, it's where the foot isn't holding the fabric tight enough so the needle is moving the fabric up and down. I had that situation here. So you can take this adjustable ring, there's a little brass ring, and you can see here, when you pull it out of the box, it might be adjusted to the highest position, and that's not gonna be so good for our thin batting that we're using in this project. So I just took my ring and I lowered this foot all the way down like that, and that's gonna help stabilize this work as I stitch.
Okay, now that I'm to this part here, I'm just going to do some free motion swirls to get to this corner on the other side of my vine. You can't see it back there, but as we quilt, you're going to see it. And then I'll come back up the other side of this vine and end where I started. So let's just do some little swirls. And I don't care if these are even or what they look like. We are just having fun and making our heart happy. Okay, now see how we're almost to this section over here? We're going to do one more spiral. And now I'm zooming over here to the corner, just like this. So now we're going to continue with our meander up the other side of this vine that's right here. So then I was able to stop in the spot where we started. So now I'm going to heel tap to lift my foot up and my needle up, heel tap again to pull that bottom thread up so that I can pull my thread, trim, and now it's knotted. And I'll just cut the rest of my threads here. All right, so now let's put on our ruler work foot. Now, with the same philosophy, I'm going to put my foot down all the way with that little brass ring. And now I'm just going to randomly do some straight lines through my string quilting in order to kind of emulate the way the other side looks, like I mentioned. I'm going to start down here at the corner. Okay, so now I'm just lining my every angle ruler up here, and we're gonna stitch right up this little white piece here. And then I'm just gonna keep going up the diagonal here. Perfect. And then I'm going to go down this way. So I'm just gonna take a little vacation over to this side and stitch in the ditch of this black and white piece. And remember, you're setting your ruler away from the seam because the width of the ruler work foot to the needle is 1/4 inch. So I'm setting this about 1/4 of an inch away from that seam so I can stitch in the ditch. Perfect. And now I want to go down this way. There's no method to my madness here. I'm just kind of, I just kind of cheat my way over there.
You go away. There, okay. I'm gonna go this way, and now we're gonna go in the ditch on this side. Oh, that's lovely, lovely, lovely. So I've got a few more things to work out here, but I'm basically just doing the same technique. And I'm gonna just cheat up here a little bit and do here. And notice that I'm trying not to stop and break my thread. You know, I'm just traveling, or as I call it, taking mini vacations. And I travel in seams when possible. And I'm going to just stitch on the very edge of this lip. Carefully stitch down my decorative stitching here. There we go. Same over here. And sometimes I just go in the middle of a fabric. That's fine too. And now we're gonna take a vacation up here. And now we've got a few more stitches to do on this side.
All right, so now we're going to stop, knot again, and then we're going to switch to our cup clip foot, but only after we arrange all of our leaves.
Okay, so let's start with the flower part for our applique. We've got our leaves here, and I've just got the flower just kind of chilling out here like that. So now that's in place, and I can either use my 505 spray to secure it, or I like to use my 505 glue stick, which you can see here. So this is just a little bit more, it's easier to control the stick. So I'm just putting a little bit on the back of each one of these. And so I can apply that. Now, some people might consider like stitching around here, then adding, oopsie, then adding your piece here like this, then stitching this on, then adding this, and then finally adding this. You can do it in that order if you like. I've got my adjustable cup clip foot that I'm going to be using, and this is just simply going to help me get that foot to glide over those seams in whatever configuration. And then I'm going to place my leaves using my glue stick as well. And don't forget, you can flip them in different ways because we've got like dark on one side and light on the other side of our edging.
So here is the adjustable cup clip foot, and it's made to go kind of over little mounds or whatever, and this is just really good for this particular project. But like I mentioned, I glued all of these things down, but you might find it much easier to kind of do some sort of little pattern around here and then add the pieces as you go. So I'm gonna pull up my thread, and now I'm just gonna do, I don't know, let's see what the spirit does to move me here as we go around this design. I mean, I just kind of doodled a little bit. Let's add this piece now. And I'm just gonna travel a little bit with this. Okay. Now our other piece, like so. And then our middle. All right, wasn't that super easy? Now, what I'm gonna do here, instead of trimming my threads each time, I'm gonna make a jump stitch. So I'm just gonna carry these threads and then I'll trim them at the end. But with my leaves, I'm going to come up and make a stem, and then I'm going to make little veins. Okay, let's hop over here, do the same thing. Now, an alternative for you, if you didn't want the jump stitches, could be just to travel down your vine and come up through the leaf. That might be my preferred method. Okay, so now I'm just gonna travel back up the vine like that, and then get to the rest of these. So let's look up close at our work here. There are my little swirls, and everything came out great. I really like it. I'm glad that I stuck with using all the same gray thread because it's less obtrusive, you know what I mean? And if we turn this over to the back, let's have a look at that intersection where we added our side, because that just looks, even though there's a seam, it just looks like a regular pieced backing. All right, what do you think? That was super fun, right? And doesn't this look just fantastic on the living room floor? I mean, Bonaparte thinks so. Anyway, I thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you stick to it for the next couple of lessons. And if you've been making yours or you're finished or whatever, I'd love to see what you're doing. So why don't you tag us on social media at Bernina of Naperville. We are on Instagram and Facebook, and you can even tag me on Blue Sky. That's right, I am Bernina Gayle on Blue Sky, so check that out. But in the meantime, if you want to see any other video tutorials and fun stuff and all of those things, don't forget to check out our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. All right, get to it, all you overquilters out there.